Hey everyone. On November 15th, 2023, we recorded 3 episodes of the show in front of a live studio audience at the Main in downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Here's episode 2 from the Balancing Act podcast live. There may be a cross-reference or two from the first episode, so it may be helpful to listen to episode 118 first. The cross-references are minor, so if time is short, it's perfectly fine to start the series here. Enjoy. Welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andy Tempe. On the Balancing Act, we talk to business leaders and industry experts to explore the balancing acts we play in our professional lives and learn about the events that put rocket boosters behind their career success. Today we have Matt Binsfeld joining us. Matt is President and CEO at Brennan Company, a leading marine construction and environmental remediation services company based right here in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Andy.
Hey, Nick, I think we need an applause track for the regular episodes when we do this. It's a good idea. So, Matt, before we get started, please tell our listeners your story.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me tonight, Andy. It's a real honor to be with you and with all of you here tonight. I grew up on the north side of La Crosse, French Island, in a family of 3 boys and 1 girl, so there was 5 of us. Actually, I know you're going to have Jake on, and he grew up on the same street as I did. I think he has the distinction of being the first guy to give me a black eye, so we grew up together.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but you know, growing up, it was a real Tom Sawyer type existence. We lived on the water. We were all boating, fishing. It was a competitive household. We did sports, and you know, my brothers and I joke that at night we'd come home from practice and our mother would throw a pan of meatloaf out there and we'd go at it like wild badgers, you know. And so it was a competitive household, but it was also a household that we're very fortunate to have 2 wonderful parents, and our father, you know, in particular, did a great job about having my brothers and I around the business, right? So we did a lot of dirty jobs and things like that, growing up and working in the business, but. He had a rule. It's a family rule that you do the dirty jobs, you go to school, get an engineering degree, you go work for the competition, get an MBA, and at such time your resume is attractive enough, we may rehire you. So I followed that route to Marquette and majored in rugby, and then also picked up a civil engineering degree, and then from there moved to Texas. And worked down there for a company similar to what we do at Brennan, and then went to Tulane for an MBA, and then mid-2000s, 2005, 2006, found my way back here. My wife and I are married today and live in La Crosse, and we have 4 daughters.
That's awesome. So the rugby thing, I hear you also play hockey. That's
not
true?
Well, but I do, yes.
Yeah. So maybe we could get Jake on either the rugby pitch or on the ice, and you could give him that black eye back.
Yeah, payback, right?
You could do that. So, Matt, tell us about your rocket booster moment. Yeah. What's that event in your life that really was a key accelerant?
Yeah. So tonight I really debated about how to use this or not. First of all, I've been really fortunate to have some great mentors in my life. The most of which was my father. I worked with him for a lot of years and was able to, learn under him as I've grown in the business and on my leadership journey. But a little over 10 years ago, we had a very significant accident here in town. Some of you may remember it. It was a vessel that sank here, just up by Lock 7, and a young man lost his life in that accident, and it was the worst. I mean, it's one of those situations in life that it's just, you don't think it can get worse than that. And there's so many emotions, right? You have so many people that are hurt, not only physically, but then, families and coworkers and things of that nature. And, to see how my father, and I was part of it, but under him, to see how he, was the strength there for those people, right? And the leadership in making sure that they had what they needed, but also that the business had what they, it needed. And at the same time, you're absolutely scared because you don't know what's next, right? You're just inside, you're hollow. And it was an experience that, I learned so much from him and through that experience about, when a situation like that occurs, how to lead through it. And fast forward 10 years later or so, and a much less serious situation, although very serious, was COVID, when COVID hit. And now I'm in the president role, and, the world came to a stop on March 17th, right? And we didn't know if it was safe to go back to work, if we could go back to work, how we could, and the emotions of people were so high, right?
Yeah.
They were it was anger and fear and all these different things. And thinking back onto that incident, like how I could be a leader, even though inside I was panicked, scared, I didn't know what was going to happen, right? How to be that leader, to lead through that, to make sure that you were the strength for the people and that they saw that you knew that where the business was going, but at the same time you're able to manage your own emotions inside so that you can be that type of leader.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for starting that off with your father as your mentor. I am so fortunate tonight, everybody. My parents are right over there in that booth. So. Speaking of mentors, we have them they're in the building, people. So tell us more about the history of J.F. Brennan. What's been the primary growth engine for the business through the years?
So we're a family business. We're in our 4th generation. My brothers and I today lead the business. 3 other brothers and myself, we lead the business. It was started by our great-grandfather, basically on a farm with his brother in Lansing, Iowa in 1919. And the business at that time was to go out and pour concrete barn floors. Concrete was really coming to be a material of use within barns, and it was a way to keep, cows' feet out of the mud and what have you. And so that's how they started the business. And from there, every decade it went on into the next generations, and we went into home building, and then more commercial work, and then into heavy infrastructure, dams, roads, railroads, bridges, things of that nature. And then finally, in the 60s or so, there became this incredible focus on water. And so today, what I like to tell people is, our business, we're pretty much coast to coast to coast throughout this country, but our marketplace is in, above, adjacent, and below the water. And that's what we do. Everything we do is water-centric. And so when you ask, what was the driver of that over 100 years, the answer is, well, it's changed, right? Because, in 1919, the growth engine was concrete barn floors, right? And today, it's environmental remediation, perhaps, right? So it's changed over that time. But I think our story, right, and the point is that it's incredibly skilled and good people. I always say if my great-grandfather were to come back today, he wouldn't know what we're doing. He wouldn't know the people in this business. But I think he could look around and he'd say, man, I know that culture. I know that culture because I really feel that the culture we have today was founded by Jim Brennan and his brother Gene.
Yeah. Congratulations on what is now 104 years. That's quite an accomplishment. So, Matt, let's talk. This is the balancing act question. When your business takes on a big infrastructure project, what's the primary balancing act that you guys are playing?
So I think it's in 3 areas, right? But let's just start out with area number 1 where there's no balance, and that's when it comes to safety, right? If it's not safe, we're not going to put somebody in harm's way. There's no compromise on that. So there's no balance when it comes to safety. Let's move down the list here, right? Let's talk about risk, like the balance around risk, whether it's operational risk, execution risk, materials risk, things of that nature. And our projects can be anywhere from a couple $100,000 to several $100 million, right? So it's a pretty big gamut, and there's a lot of risk there. And how do we balance that risk, right? Honestly, it's good people, good skilled people working in great systems, right? If you have highly trained people that know what they need to do, working in great systems, that's how we manage that risk. And I also think there's a third area as well too, and I know all of us in this room, or at least all of us who are out working in our careers, we have to balance clients, right? And so there's also that client or customer balance, right? And so again, you know, many times when we're working with clients as they're developing projects and things of that nature, you got to balance their expectations with reality or cost realities, right? And so, but here again, it comes back to having people who are versed in you know, communicating the realities of that and working with these clients in a way that, you know, can take what their vision was and mend it with where the reality is to get a product that they want, or that they, you know, say, hey, this is a great product.
Yeah, this concept of risk management and your consistent theme around people and people resources. I know we're going to talk about that a lot more. But this is a place where I'd just like to pause and point out to everybody that having the right people in the right roles and having those roles well defined is how the whole people equation really starts to sing. Because if you don't have roles and responsibilities well defined, my dear friend Mike Pyer, what happens? People start to work at cross purposes, they run all over each other, they start telling stories about what's happening in that other terrible department over there. The kind of cancer that develops within organizations really gets its start through poorly defined goals, poorly defined roles and responsibilities. So when your leader is saying we've got to figure out and know exactly what everybody is doing, there's a reason for that, and it's about building a great culture and great results for your customers. Let's shift gears to your specific career arc. What's the most important balancing act that you've played that's contributed to your success as a leader? You
know, as I think of, you know, my leadership journey or the journey I've been on, right, it's there's been a lot of bumps in the road, right? You learn by making mistakes, right? And I could write a book on the mistakes I've made as I've gone on this journey, but
we all can.
Yeah, and,
I have.
But you know, you have.
I have.
You wrote 2 books.
If you want to know all the mistakes, most of the mistakes are in the first book. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, I would say this, right? Is as a leader, and we all as leaders, you know, face this balancing act where, you know, the best type of decision is one where you can get everybody behind it and consensus, and everybody's like, yeah, that's it, right? Because that's going to create engagement, it's going to create buy-in, it's going to create ownership of that decision, right? And most of the time in leadership, right, that lever, like that happens, right? You build that consensus. It may not be unanimous, but you have that consensus there. But there are times as leaders, and this is the tough thing, and this is, I think, why they say leadership can be lonely, right, is that there are times that you have that lever where you say, guys, we got to do this. We got to make this move. We got to push forward, right? And you got to pull that lever. Now, you can't pull it all the time because you're going to create people that are just going to be looking to you and not making decisions themselves. Right. But every once in a while, you got to say, you know, guys and gals, I believe in you. I know we can do this. We got to be bold here. Let's press forward, despite the fact that you may not have everyone on board at that moment. So it's a balance, right, on when to pull that lever, when not to pull that lever. But it's, you know, and like I said, when I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, it's pulling that lever when I shouldn't have, or not pulling it when I should have. Yeah. Well, thank you for really shining a light on that subject, because we are moving out, thankfully, moving out of a world of highly directive leaders and managers who it's my way or the highway or no way at all. And I was one of those leaders at one time. But you can't move all the way to a consensus approach where everything is a vote by committee, because nothing will get done, right, and you'll miss some really good opportunities. So that is one of the big balancing acts that we're playing in society right now. So
We're going to take another quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Matt Binsfeld. Hi, I'm Andy Temte. Over the past 35 years, I've learned a lot about business leadership, and I'd like to share those lessons with you. Ask yourself, how do I create an effective, sustainable management operating system? How do I design smooth workflows to better serve the customer? How do I balance organizational trust with accountability? The Balanced Business describes the practical, step-by-step process you need to answer these questions. Order your copy today wherever books are sold. And we're back with Matt Binsfeld from J.F. Brennan. Matt, J.F. Brennan is a large family-run business. And I'm on the record in this piece of work very strongly advocating that your business is not your family. Families are precious. Families are messy. Remember the badger, the meatloaf badger example? So, families are messy. I'm interested in your perspective on the intersection between family and business. What advice do you have for leaders of other family-owned businesses to get that balance between family and business right?
Mm-hmm. So here's what I would probably say: two things. Well, number one, right hats, right place, right? Wear the right hats in the right time. And number two, lean in. Families are messy. Family businesses are messy. It's just the way it is, right? But there's also a great beauty in it as well too, right? And why is that, right? Is that you look at a relationship in a family business. Take me and any one of my brothers, right? In a normal business, we would go home and at night, and that would be it. And maybe you work together for a number of years, and those relationships are pretty well defined, right? But in a family business, those relationships, they go from when you were a kid till today, right? Like my brother is not going to forget about the rock I threw in his face when I was 10 and he was 8, right? And so, but that's part of our relationship, and our relationship is the sum of our experiences together, right? And so what I find, even in our family and family businesses, when you talk to other families and businesses, that as you go through life, sometimes you start to get hardened ideas about who somebody is, or he's always been a big brother, or this or that, and sometimes it can affect communication and break down communication, and that's to my point about leaning in, right? When you feel that, and you can feel it inside, like, man, I'm just not talking to my brother, there's an issue, but I'm not talking. Lean into that, right? Lean into that communication. The other one is right hats, right place, and this, we talk a lot about this, my brothers and I, about we work in the business, we're board members, and we're family members. When you're in a company meeting, you can't wear your family hat in the company meeting. All it's going to do is create disengagement. It's going to, everybody's going to be looking to you. Nobody's going to have that ownership of their decisions, right? But when you're in that family meeting, just because I play the role of the CEO in the business, I'm just one of 12 voices in that family, right? So now it's a relationship of influence versus direction, right? So being uber aware about what situation you're in and what hat to wear would be the other piece of advice I would give people.
Great advice. Matt, we talk a lot on this show about the balancing act between technical skill, what I'm going to college to learn if you're in accounting or whatever, the nuts and bolts of it, and the human skill that's necessary to navigate the world of work. We no longer, by the way, show up at work in a suit of in a suit of armor, emotional armor. We want folks to bring more of their whole selves into the world of work. If you had to name the top two human skills that are just absolutely essential for your team members to hone, what are those skills?
Connection and accountability, right? And I think in our business, right, we're in construction, right? Your ability to connect with people on the front line, as well as you are able to connect with a board member, is critically important in our business, right? Connection creates engagement. Connection creates communication, right? Connection gives people the sense of ownership right, in the business, in their decisions. So connection, I think, is hugely important. Now, connection without accountability is just an acquaintance or a low-level friendship, right? Like in business, though, you have that connection, but you also have to have that connection in a way that if you have goals, or you have, whether it be corporate goals or personal, growth goals, things of that nature, that you're keeping people accountable to that. And so I think those two skill sets, right, together in tandem are critically important to learn.
Yeah, Matt and I met prior to this event, and the second book here, The Balanced Business, centers around this balancing act between organizational trust. We all want to get along, we all want to trust one another, but we've also got to get stuff done. We've got to be able to hold one another accountable. And if you just have these superfluous surface level relationships within the business and nobody knows what anybody else is doing, if you expect trust to be built in the business in that kind of environment, I'm here to tell you that the fastest way to the bottom of the trust ladder is by breaking a promise to somebody in another department and not delivering on time. You just go right back down to the bottom of the trust ladder. So I really get a kick out of pundits and folks in the business media saying, oh, it's all about building trust in a trust-based culture in organizations. Well, where's the accountability piece of that? It also has to be front and center. So, Matt, here are your lightning round questions. I also have a time machine for Matt. We're going to stuff him in it. You get 280 characters to go back to a previous version of yourself. What's the message? What's the previous version of yourself?
Yeah, so this is where Neil really shines. So good answer, Neil, on the last one. I told my wife my answer isn't as good, but I would go back to my early 20s as well, too. And probably the first thing I would tell myself is, Matt, when 2020 rolls around, take a sabbatical. In reality, this is what, I remember myself in my early 20s, and, it's just, you're so locked into, you want to advance in your career, you want to just take everything on, you want to, it's work, you're focused, and I would go back and I would tell myself, take the time, not just to make decisions and things of that nature, but take the time to appreciate the relationships in your life. On the day my oldest daughter was born, 15 years ago, I met a grandfatherly type who had a child or a grandchild that was born that day, and he.
You mean somebody my age?
Well, he looked much older. But he said to me, Andy, he said to me, 18 years will go like a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Will go like a blink of an eye. And, she's going to be 16 this summer. And where have 16 years gone? And I even say to myself, have I fully enjoyed the relationships and time I've had with her to the fullest extent? And the answer is not enough, not enough. So take the time to enjoy those relationships.
Yeah, your career is indeed a journey. And we have students in the front row here, and the rat race can get the best of you, and take a breath every now and then.
It's a marathon.
Yes, it is a marathon. So, second lightning round question. As a leader, you are committed to lifelong learning and growth. What are you learning, and what are you working on right now?
Yeah, so, I've come to the realization I'm starting the back nine of my career, right? And that's kind of weird to think about, but the end is getting closer than the beginning. And, on the first nine, when I was on the first 9 holes of my career, you're always thinking about your leadership journey in the sense of how am I improving my leadership skills, right? Am I learning about emotional intelligence or resilience or so many of the facets that make up, what you envision at that age as a good leader. As I get to the back nine here, I'm starting to realize to myself, and I spend a tremendous amount of time and effort really focusing on the concept of stewardship, right? This business has been around for 100 years because it's had great stewards. And the reality for me is that this business is going to be much more resilient, much more sustainable if we create great leaders around us, right? And we grow that leadership pool within our organization and our team. And so my focus is on our team, on growing the talent that will ultimately, when we pass that baton, my brothers and I, in 20 years, that we're passing an organization that's just going to continue to build and to grow, because not only is it founded on good financials and all the blocking and tackling, but it's got the leadership in place to continue to thrive.
Yeah, I would just ask everybody to focus on that word stewardship, because in this life, we focus so much on ownership, but do we really ever own anything? You bought that fancy new car last week. Do you own it forever? We treat things like we own them forever, but we really don't. And certainly, if you want a long-term sustainable business, focusing on stewardship, like Matt is doing here, is wonderful. Final question, Matt. What's next for J.F. Brennan? What excites you, and what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, so let's start in the back, and we'll work to the forward, just like Neil did. So what keeps me up at night?
You only have a minute.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've got inflation. We've got a workforce population that's shrinking. We've got a slowing economic times, right? It feels like it could be a Japan in 1990, stagflation and things of that nature, right?
Yeah.
Now, these are all existential type threats, right? And so I can't control that, but what keeps me up at night is how can I control how we navigate that, right? What excites me, right? What excites me is that this world is changing in ways that we haven't seen since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We're learning to repower ourselves as a country. We're learning how to retransmit power, transmit power in new ways. There's been a focus on infrastructure renewal like we haven't seen in 70, 80 years in this country. New chemicals, chemical constituents that require remediation. There's focus on that area. Human adaptation to global climate change. This type of work is reality. It's already happening. It's a hugely exciting time in that regard. And so what excites me is thinking about, okay, how do we capture that? How do we capture these opportunities, right? And what it comes down to is people, right? Human capital, skilled people. And, there's an old saying that talent in this world can be found everywhere. Talent is everywhere. Opportunity is not. What excites me, and when I think about Brennan and where we're going as an organization, is how can we be that type of organization that provides opportunity for talent, undiscovered talent that doesn't have the opportunity to thrive. How can we be that organization to provide that opportunity? And I believe if we do that, we are going to be on the leading edge of solving some of these incredibly big challenges we have in front of us, but incredibly exciting opportunities.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. You are a fantastic guest.
Thanks for having me, Andy. Really appreciate it.
My name is Andy Tempe. This is the Balancing Act Podcast. You can find us on all the major streaming services. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public good with your friends and your neighbors. We'll see you next time.